All right, Motown Rundown. We're back. I don't know how long it's been. I'm sorry to everyone. We had a burner account reach out to us on Twitter the other day, who shall not be named, who was looking for a new episode. Someone also commented on an Instagram picture of mine recently looking for a new episode. So the people are hungry, and we sure have a lot to feed you guys today. So welcome back. Today is, what is it, Tuesday, July 9th. God, I feel like I was gone for months for the 4th of July weekend, and we'll talk about that. But it's great to have us all back together here. We have a loaded show today. We'll talk Pistons, we'll talk Red Wings, we'll talk Tigers. I don't think we have any Lion stuff, although I know receiver is coming out tomorrow. Amon-Ra St. Brown featured in that one. So actually, we will talk Lions because I got some issues with the Lions, but we'll get to that in a second. Guys, it's good to see you. Ryan Collins, Trent Bailey, it's great to see your faces. How is everyone? God bless you. God be with you. How's your summer? How was your 4th of July weekend? How's your golf game? What's going on?
Good. Same old 4th of July with the whole family up north. Nice. Weather was kind of shitty. Wasn't great. So just kind of hung, played a lot of golf. It was nice. But other than that, same old, just working. You know how it is.
Yeah, the fourth being on a Thursday was a little bit of a weird vibe because a lot of people do still have to work Friday, and so it kind of threw things off. So the fourth celebration for me was kind of Saturday. That's when my whole
I think most people
family,
it was.
yeah, we did like this big cornhole tournament / barbecue up north in Ludington. That was awesome. Had a great time there with my extended family. Good to see everyone. But summer's awesome. I haven't had this much fun, been this happy in a very long time. Summer in Michigan is just, you guys talked about this. I think it was on the last episode we did at the beginning of June. It's been about a month, but summer in Michigan is just unbeatable and it's well underway and life is good. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, I know.
Been a
Damn.
minute.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a summer for sure. I feel like I've been doing a lot, trying to maximize every day that I can. So things have been good. I myself got up north for the 4th of July, took a visit to Ohio too, did a little a quick tour in Columbus, and then was at a lake in I think Seneca Lake, whatever that might be. So I mean, it's hard to beat, but summer's been great so far. We're full swing here into the point of the summer where all we really have to talk about is the Tigers until football starts. I feel like, or that's kind of what the main focus is. Although we do have a lot to catch up on in the Detroit sports world, which we will do. I'm reading our little document here. This was a good tidbit you threw in here, TB. Ryan Collins, you're a Michigan State lifer. Kelly Collins and company. Michigan State Notre Dame football's back. How do you feel?
Fucking love it. As someone who grew up on that
Isn't that
game,
great?
it's fantastic. And the thing that always pisses me off is when they talk about, and I wish Michigan and Notre Dame was back too, but like people like kind of forget Michigan, like Notre Dame's old schedule. The one thing I used to love about Notre Dame, and I have a love hate relationship with Notre Dame. My grandpa, classic guy who did not go to college, went to the army, Irish Catholic guy, born in like the 40s, who loved Notre Dame football.
Yeah,
So there
yeah.
was like a affinity for Notre Dame football in my family until basically everyone went to Michigan State. But I just kind of miss Notre Dame playing Big Ten teams. It's not even just Michigan and Michigan State, but they used to play Purdue. There'd be occasional year they play Northwestern. I think they're playing Ohio State, actually. They played Ohio State the past 2 years, but that was an uncommon matchup. So it's nice to see them back on the schedule. I hope it's week 2. I mean, I think it's usually week 3. It was usually week 3, but it was always a night game at Spartan Stadium. It was great. I think I only got it once in college. Rabs, you probably got it twice, I think.
I just remember I went to Notre Dame to watch Michigan State Notre Dame at night in South Bend, and I
Freshman
think
year,
that
right?
was yeah, that was when they won that game to go 3-0 with Tyler O'Connor at the helm. And I remember texting everyone after that game that I don't think Michigan State's going to lose a game that year. And then the next week they came home and I think lost to Wisconsin 30-0. I left at halftime, and I don't think
They
they
did not
won the
lose
rest of
30
the
to
season.
nothing. They did not.
What was it?
LJ Stott fumbles the ball at the end of the half. They go down a touchdown, and then they lost by like 3 touchdowns. But
Oh, well, whatever. Whatever it was bad from there. I remember I went right to I went right to Case and I had a bunch of cookies. I was so disgusted. I was like,
The
in
BYU
line.
game is where it really completely fell off the rails.
Yeah, that was a tough year. But Notre Dame's great. Rudy's one of my favorite movies, and I used to have a Notre Dame little doll that would sing the fight song growing up. So
It's
that's
great.
cool.
I was at that BYU game you're referring to, and me and my brothers were looking for Ziggy Ansah at the time because he was a BYU. I mean, he was a Lion at the time, but we thought because the game was being played in EL that he'd be there, and he wasn't. But anyways, Collins, I want to ask you because I'm probably in the minority here, but whenever this stuff gets announced years and years in advance, I'm just like, it's cool. I'm excited initially for like 30 minutes, and then I won't have juice for that again until like this time 2026.
Well,
actually
I think it's all and Trent, you're like this with the Lions, and you saw Rabs last year go to San Francisco. If you're planning trips and you have people getting married, it's actually nice to have these dates very far in advance.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah.
Because this year I have two cousins that are getting married on the Michigan State-Ohio State game, which is the best home game at Spartan Stadium this year. It to be fair, not their fault that the Big Ten got realigned, and I think it was supposed to be a bye week and like whatever. It is what it is. It happens. Not a big deal. Michigan State's lost by 50 to Ohio State the last like 5 years, so maybe me not being there is a good recipe for success. But like my dad literally put in a family group chat with I think about 35 people, and his family said no one scheduled a wedding on either of these two dates.
That's perfect.
It's like just because I've never been to Notre Dame Stadium for a game. I will be going to that. I think that's the whole thing. When you get those on the date, Trent, like me and the guys I have tickets with, we're going to Boston College this year when State plays them.
Okay.
So it's nice it's nice to plan ahead and have these schedules. But I hear what you're saying, Trent. Like, I think with the new college football landscape, they won't really do this as much. Where it's like they'll do it 10 years. They used to do this all the time. Where it's like, oh, Michigan State's playing Alabama in a home and home in 2030. And then it gets canceled, and everyone's like, whatever. Like, I'm pretty sure Michigan State scheduled this Boston College game legit 15 years ago. I'm not even kidding. So,
yeah. No,
And I like Michigan State historically has done a very good job of scheduling non-conference games that are at least like fun and like you have some juice with. Like, I mean, ever since like D'Antonio took over, I mean, teams that they were supposed to play in the non-conference went from like they played Oregon, they played Boise, they played Washington, obviously the last couple of years. They were supposed to play Miami twice. They only played them once, played BYU. And then they played Notre Dame every year for a while. But I don't know. Notre Dame on the schedule is great. It just, as a Midwestern guy, that's all you can dream for.
That Boston College game, I feel like I looked at too and was like, if there's a road game to go to, I've never been to Boston. But I feel like that's the state. Too. Are they really? But I feel like that's the same weekend that the Lions are in Arizona, which I am going to go to that game.
I wouldn't doubt it. But
so that's what I think I'm doing. And shout out to my uncle.
Can you, Rabs, you said you have a problem with the Lions. We don't have to do a whole thing. I've just been curious the last 10 minutes. What is it about?
Oh, no, my problem with the Lions probably isn't necessarily a Lions problem. It's more so of the fact that almost every other day I go on the Lions fan shop looking for a Frank Ragnow jersey.
Nope, they don't have one, Rabs.
And I don't understand how
I think
they're selling Traquan's. Huh? No, I'm not doing that. Fuck that. I'm not doing that.
No, but there's a player one, Rabs, where you can pick any player, I thought.
No, well, to my knowledge, Trent
would know this.
Yes, but the player, when you pick a player jersey,
it costs more.
Yes, they're like $129 if you were to pick like an Aiden Hutchinson jersey, unless you get the next level, which is underneath the Miles Bally jersey, which you can literally wear in a game. And they would probably let Miles in the stadium in the locker room with how real that jersey is.
Him already having one is unbelievable.
He has two. He's got two. He's got the blue one and the white one, and then he bought a black Amon-Ra one, which is like a step down. So Miles is ready to go.
Yeah, but you can buy
another two?
Yes. Got to have the new jerseys. Because they're also really good jerseys too. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they are. They are.
It's a little bit less of a cycle
but
move
why does he keep getting his name on them?
so that they're timeless.
I guess.
I guess.
I don't
But
know.
if you buy the regular player, it's like $129 for like your standard jersey. You can go up and get like the Nike Fuse or whatever. That's $179. But if I were to customize one to put a player's name on it, that's a captain of the fucking team, that's going to cost me like $50 more to do that. And I'm just not doing that. So I'm going to have to go down to Ford Field and walk in there and be like, you guys got to have Ragnow jerseys, right? Because like there's players, there are, I'm going to pull this up right now.
No, Rabs, it's crazy he doesn't have one.
Keep talking.
No, you're right though.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
crazy.
doesn't it almost make you wonder if there's some weird loophole where he hasn't signed off on like a name, image, likeness because he doesn't want it or something?
And that's what it might be.
Like maybe
Rabs,
like maybe do they just pay him a package and he just gets money?
They sold Ragnow jerseys last year.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's weird.
Maybe they thought he was retiring or something.
I hope not. Dear Lord.
I need to go find these jerseys that I was looking at. I'm scrolling right now.
No, but they're like third round, fourth round picks. They like legit had the most random guys. There's like my brother told me the other day they said get a Jad Campbell jersey. I'm like, I punch you straight in the teeth.
I can buy it for $129. I can buy a Lauren Strickland jersey. Who is Lauren Strickland?
Yeah, I have no idea. They have Davenport on there. They have all those dudes.
It's got to be
Isaiah Williams. Who is Isaiah Williams? Who is Hogan?
They're all draft picks. They're all draft picks.
Hogan Hatton? Who is Hogan Hatton? Who is Nate Lynn? Who are these people that I can buy these jerseys? But I can't buy a Traquan Smith. But I can't buy Matthew Betts. I can't buy a Frank Ragnow, Kyle Pecco, Nitane Mutai. But I can't buy a Frank Ragnow jersey. Fuck you, kiss my ass. No disrespect.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm in the same boat, Rabs. I'm in the same boat.
It's just irritating. So I'm going to have to clearly go.
By the way, can I say this?
Yep.
I'm just going to say this, and don't crucify me. I know I'm going to get yelled at. I don't like the black jerseys. I've thought about it. I think they'll look good on field.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy if you buy the black jersey over the.
Yeah, I'm not buying one.
Hey, I'm in the same boat. I think the black is fine. It's just not like
it's not bad. I've seen too many black jerseys in the streets already for my liking.
I agree with you. I totally agree, especially because the blue and white are that much better that it's just
fire.
Yes, so the black is just they better wear that thing one game max.
They'll wear it more. It'll probably look cool on field. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like if you're buying something, I don't know. I just want Rabs. When you said you were mad at the Lions, I thought you were going to be like, "Let me tell you, coach."
No, I'm fine. I'm fine with the team. I think it's a Fanatics issue, which it just never stops with Fanatics. But
hey, last thing I'll say, maybe he's changing his number and it's still processing, and he doesn't want people to get boned on buying a new jersey. Like, who knows?
Frank Ragnow, 69, could be coming your way. Anyway. All right, let's jump into
jerseys I see at the game. So yeah.
Yeah, the Zettles. That's right. Zettles. My last thing before we truly move on, my buddies who I'm moving into a house with them this coming weekend, one of them has a Ziggy Ansah signed jersey that is framed in the living room. So I will be moving into that situation. I'll have to look at that.
Not that bad. Ziggy was good.
I know, but it just I don't know, just bizarre.
I just remember Ziggy. I remember Ziggy sacking Mark Sanchez on Thanksgiving in 2015 against the Eagles, and then doing the waddle dance, the eagle flight, like he was mocking the fly Eagles fly. That was Ziggy's 1 year where he stayed healthy. He was phenomenal.
Yep.
I think he made a Pro Bowl with the Lions.
Oh, he definitely made a Pro Bowl. I think he was all pro.
He might have been. He was great.
Yeah. So
the 1 year he stayed healthy.
Very possible. Sorry. All right, no big deal. We're let's roll into the sports here. I'll just go in order of what Trent threw out here, and I don't think it really matters because we have a ton to catch up on every single team except the Lions. Let's start with the Pistons here. Several things to go through. I guess I can rattle some things off, or we can just maybe start from the back and work forward. Trajan Langdon takes over as the I don't know, is his title the general manager? Is he the president
It's
of
president of
basketball
basketball
operations?
ops, I think.
So whatever that might be, he comes over from the New Orleans Pelicans as your new head of basketball operations. Some quick hitters here that I guess we can go through in a second. But to go back to the personnel, they also hired JB Bickerstaff, comes over 4-year contract with a 5th-year team option. He comes over from Cleveland, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess
Well, you didn't mention that they fired Monty. I don't think we talked about that last time.
Yeah, I guess okay. So I guess in that same vein, Troy Weaver's out, Monty Williams is out, and before I kick it over to you guys, and I know there's plenty of other things on the Pistons front to cover that Trent has rattled off here, and I'm not gonna steal your guys' thunder on the moves that were made, and we can talk drafts, we can talk Cade Cunningham. But my piece on this is, there was a press conference in which Tom Gores was included on. I didn't listen to the whole thing, and that just goes to show how little I care about what that organization does. But I will say, to the credit of Tom Gores, it was to eat the money on Monty Williams' contract with, I mean, God, he might have had 30 years left on that contract for $2 billion. I have no idea. But I at least appreciate the fact that the move was made. I appreciate the fact that Trajan Langdon comes in. And I was just like, it would have just been so Pistons for somehow he comes over and Troy Weaver keeps his job. But they have effectively cleaned house to the best of their abilities and are starting over with a new front office, or at least a new top of the front office, and a new head coach. And that is where I will turn it over to you guys in terms of the hires, the moves that have been made. JB Bickerstaff as a head coach, and then we can talk draft, we can talk Cade Cunningham, and go from there.
Well, let's go one at a time. Collins, I want to do coaching first. You can go with it, but talk about firing Monty and hiring JB.
So fire Monty, thank God. Ding dong, the witch is dead. It was a great surprise. I think it was like, what was that? I had like a meeting. It was like a Wednesday. It was almost like a month ago, right? About
it's been a while.
That. So I was fired up. I mean, I can't tell you how much I was fucking fired up about that. But the problem is you can't really give Gores credit because he was the one who created this mess. Like, it's not, and the one that seriously, he was the one who basically, Monty said he didn't want to coach, and he basically threw so much money at him that he coached. So, it is what it is. They ate the money. I can respect that. Hire Bickerstaff. I just think it's one of those situations. Anyone but Monty is better. Anyone but Monty is better. I just don't think people who did not consistently watch his team last year in the national media are like, oh, what are the Pistons doing? They're like, this is a terrible. They truly don't understand how bad he was last year. And especially the first 50 games of the year, it was almost appalling that there was legit reports that people thought he was trying to get fired. Like he was like, there was legit reporters. This isn't like a conspiracy thing. People from the Athletic and people around the league are like, he might be trying to get fired. So, I mean, it's a huge win. Bickerstaff, I'm not going to act like he's fucking awesome. He did a good job with Cleveland and their young guys. That team obviously has a lot more talent than this Pistons does currently. But you could see a blueprint where maybe you saw a guy like Garland take off in year 3. Maybe you see Cade in his his third full year of playing take off, maybe. And Cade's a way better player than Garland is, but or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you've seen success with younger guys there. I get why they did that. It's a safe move. It seems like players like him. Cleveland Cavaliers fans fucking hated him. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Maybe they had too much high expectations with that roster, but everyone I knew who liked that team despised him. Not to act like I know why. Not to act like I'm not going to give him a chance. Like the move. I mean, is what it is. I would have done Borrego. I think Borrego's a really good coach. He must be super hard to deal with, Borrego, because every time I watched that Hornets team was like way better when he was the coach there than anyone has like even remotely been with the Hornets. And that roster is not that much different than it is currently. and they were one of the worst teams in the league last year. So I'm just curious what the rotations will be like, what their starting lineup is going to look like. And we'll talk about the moves and the draft and some other stuff. But head coaching moves, I mean, anyone but Monty. I've emphasized this so much on this podcast. He was so fucking bad. He's the worst coach I've seen any one of my major teams ever have. Ever. Like, not even, and people will be like, Patricia Osmond. Seriously, ever.
Yeah,
Ever. It was not close either. Like, Patricia
That's
was
high
a
praise.
fucking moron. He was a moron. But, like, they still, won 6 games? Like, Osmus was a fucking dumb fuck and cost them probably an opportunity to go to another ALCS.
They made the playoffs once.
I still didn't think both those guys were actively losing games. They were playing Killian Hayes over Jaden Ivey last year. I don't even like Jaden Ivey that much. But the fact that they had audacity to stick Ivey on the bench and play Killian Hayes was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen last year. And you could credit that to Monty. So, I don't know. Anyone but Monty. And I know Trent's a little bit more fired up on it, but I'm not going to go over the moon about Bickerstaff, but I'm over the moon that Monty's gone.
Yeah, that's fair, Collins. I'm with you. And yeah, I think all of our loyal listeners, shout out, who have been listening to this all last season, they know how frustrated you have been, and I as well, but you to a more extent with Monty Williams. So Monty's out. That's great. I mean, he never wanted the job. It was reported. I mean, he literally didn't want the job. If you look at the coach salaries now, he literally reset the market. Steve Kerr got paid more because of Monty Williams. Eric Spoelstra got paid more because of Monty Williams. And those are guys that have built cultures and won championships for their respective franchises. So Monty Williams, perfect crime. Good for you. And he's a good guy. I know he's been through a lot. His wife died in a car crash. He's got like 5 kids, I think. He's good for him. I mean, I wish him the best. But yeah, Collins, he sucked as a head coach. The reports that he was actively trying to lose games, I got no comment on that. It was kind of funny because
they just weren't playing their best players. Like there would be like Marcus Sasser. I'm not gonna act like he's fucking Michael Jordan, but he was like a pretty solid bench piece for them last year when he played. And there would be like stretchers like, yeah, he's not playing for 10 games for no reason. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, we have nobody who can play. Alec Burks, one of the worst players in the NBA for the first 30 games of last season. He's getting the last shots in final moments. I'm like, guys, what is going on? So, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I think I'm more excited to talk about the moves they made in free agency. And
yeah.
I have a little bit more juice to talk about what they did in the draft, maybe.
Well, quickly, I just want to talk about JB for a quick second because I think
Why are you so fired up? I don't get it, Trent. I really don't.
Because his big thing is he connects with young players, and I think that's what the Pistons need vitally right now. Because whether or not someone else is getting moved, like Collins, you and I have talked about this behind the scenes or off script, whatever you want to call it. We think Ivy might be going, Asar might be going, whatever. But the fact is, the Pistons, they extended Cade, which we haven't really talked about. It's old news now at this point, but you are now committed.
It just got signed today, Trent. I don't know if it's old news.
Well, it was agreed upon like weeks ago, and then today.
No, I know.
But yes, I know what you're saying. So it's now official that you're like building around Cade Cunningham. So you need young players. They've signed some shooters that we'll get to in a minute. But JB Bickerstaff, his whole calling card is that he connects with young players. He gave the Cavs their most success that they've ever had without LeBron James since like the early 90s before we were all born. So I think that's got something to be said. He did a decent job with the Memphis Grizzlies as they were kind of in that transition period, working out of the Marc Gasol era and Mike Conley era, that sort of thing. It's a good hire, man. They're paying him half what they paid Monty, and he's got to come in here and just kind of clean up this mess. And like Collins said, anything better than Monty is good. And Collins, quickly, before we talk about the free agents, I just want you to know, this can be quick. We used to do buy or sell on Green and White Report. I want you to buy or sell me this. Buy or sell that JB Bickerstaff is the best coach the Pistons have had since Flip Saunders. That was in 2008 when they last won their last playoff game. You think JB can win a playoff game for this franchise?
Who's the coach before Casey?
Stan Van. Before John Lawyer.
The GM Stan Van was an idiot, but I thought the in-game coach actually Stan Van wasn't bad. Okay. So I probably Flip though. I mean, Flip was good. I mean, you could argue there's a lot of things flipped into right when he was in Detroit, but I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a high bar.
No, it's not at all. You literally
No.
just have to win a
Other
game.
than Chuck Daly and Larry Brown, it's not like they've had a pretty rough coaching history ever since that 2005 finals.
Yeah, shout out Dickie V, coach of the Pistons in the 80s. Not many people, or 70s.
John
not many people know,
Huster,
but
Michael Curry.
I don't want to say JB Bickerstaff's a bridge coach, but I just think the expectation, guys, it kind of feels to me like when they brought in Ron Gardenhire for the Tigers, and obviously we know why that ended. He had some health issues and stuff, but it just feels like come in, kind of coach the young guys along, you connect with those guys, get this team to make some strides, and then we'll see what happens in 4 or 5 years when your deal's up. So that's all. Rabs, we can move on to free agency and the draft.
Yeah, so, well, in terms of personnel, and again, this is where I probably turn things more over to you guys, which is absolutely fine. Some quick hitters here for free agency. Tobias Harris is back on a 2-year, $52 million deal. I feel like Tobias Harris has been rumored to come back to the Pistons for a decade now. So that finally happened. Malik Beasley, 1 year, $6 million. Simone Fontenecchio comes back on a 2-year, $16 million deal. And the only other move that was made outside of the draft was Quentin Grimes, who will be a great trivia question one day, gets traded for Tim Hardaway Jr. and 3 second-round picks. And then outside of that, we can go to the draft real quick, and I'll just let you guys loop this all into one. Pick number 5, they go with Ron Holland II, with the number 5 overall pick coming out of the G League, and then Bobby Klintman from Sweden at the 37th pick. That was part of a trade that they made with the Minnesota Timberwolves to move up. I will also shout out, while we are on the topic of rookies in the draft, the NBA Summer League is upon us. The Pistons roster has been finalized, and I would like to shout out Novi High School class of 2016, Cam Hankerson, who is on the roster. Congrats to you, Hank. I have not seen him in a long time, but that is pretty awesome.
Where did he play?
I want to say he played at Green Bay in college, and I think he was overseas for a second, but I also think he played in the G League maybe a year or two ago. And by whatever means necessary that he's in the mix here, I think that's pretty sweet.
Good for him.
Good for him. But as far as signings, trades, draft, you guys can all rope it into one. Whoever wants to lead it off here. And
okay, can we start with the draft? Because we were texting. And first of all, immediate reaction, didn't understand the pick. Didn't understand Holland at 5. I felt like they could have easily moved back to 9, where Memphis was, where they would have took Kenyon at 5. I still think they could have done that. After they made all the moves, honestly, we should just kind of wrap it all together and then kind of talk about the draft first. So they signed Tobias. They signed Malik Beasley. They do the little it's not really a sign and trade. It was this asset management, like take on a bad contract at Tim Hardaway Jr. and get rid of Grimes. Didn't really get that one. I actually kind of like Grimes, but everyone's like, oh, he didn't want to be in Detroit. Like you want Hardaway's kind of washed. Like he's been in the league for a minute.
I'll make
I'm not even making a point. I'm going through all the moves.
Okay, go for it.
And then they signed Fontecchio on a nice deal. And then today they signed Paul Reed, which I actually like because they have not had a competent like backup bit. And people would be like, oh, he was terrible in the playoffs for Philly. They couldn't play him out. That's fine. He's playable in the regular season. And he was more than serviceable for Philly for a couple of years there. So I think he will help out their front end. But going back to the draft, and we can talk about everything else. And I wasn't even making a point about that Grimes thing because I'm not going to act super attached to that. It is what it is. They're trying to get some more pits back, and they just want more shooting, whatever. Well, all in all, now that everything's kind of happened, and it seems like there's no more moves unless it seems like it would be a massive change of heart for the Pistons to try and go after Brandon Ingram, which would not be a big price if they really wanted to do that, which it doesn't seem like they're going to do that considering they already have $30 million attached to Tobias and guys like Malik Beasley and Tim. I just don't see that happening. I hate the draft pick. I don't fucking understand it. I understand you pick on upside and all this shit. I've just seen it too many times the last 15 years with the Pistons with drafting guys who just cannot shoot. And they can say all this shot coach, shot doctor, all this. Hey, if they're right, they're right. I'm just not going to act like I love this pick. I think this is and to be fair, there was no safe pick in this draft. So if Langdon wants to go on the table this pick, yeah, that's fine with me. That's fine. But the assumption that they couldn't have moved out of that pick and then took Holland, they could have easily done that if they wanted another second rounder. They could have easily have done that. People wanted Clingan. I don't think that's any secret. And Memphis probably is going to be happy with Edey because, I mean, watch Edey in the Summer League. I think that's going to translate a lot more than people thought it was going to. He's just that fucking massive. I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't understand having another non-shooting wing. I get he's hyper competitive. I get the model is you got to have a bunch of wing creators like the Celtics and stuff like to win in the big time and make you so flexible. And to be fair, I'm criticizing this without having another option. You know what I mean? I probably wouldn't have said a fucking batted an eye if they took that kid from the Ignite, the other kid from the Ignite. You know what I mean? And he's not even a good shooter either. It seemed like a reach. I don't like the idea of them just having less shooting, but they kind of corrected that in free agency. But, I mean, they took a swing. See how it is. I'm not going to get super excited because guess what? None of these guys have worked out the past, 15 years. And we haven't seen it with Asar yet. We haven't seen it with Ivy yet, where we've seen a guy who's actually improved in his shooting. As we saw with Sekou, who's this fucking a bust. Saw with Stanley Johnson, who had potential, but his jumper was broken. So I'm just – and even KCP, when he was on the Pistons, he could shoot the three. It wasn't like he was a knockdown shooter. You know what I mean? He wasn't a knockdown shooter on the Pistons. He kind of became into that when he got to LA and Denver. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm not rooting against it. I understand it. I just didn't like it. I would have traded back, tried to get a more seasoned vet because they have so many young guys on this roster. And everyone would be like, it's so lazy to say Dalton cannot and all that bullshit. No, why I think because Dalton Connect's going to be good. If you watch college basketball this year, the only reason why he lasted until college till he was 23, he had a fucking 9-inch growth spurt since he was 19 years old. And he was playing at Northern Arizona before he transferred to Tennessee. So, people bitch me at that. Or I wanted Devin Carr. I just wanted a guy who could come in and be like, okay, he's going to give us competent minutes. And I guess that's not how NBA executives want to look at it. But at some point, I'm like, can we not draft a fucking million young guys?
Well, I
have
think
some sort of maturity on this team. So that's all I had to say.
I definitely think Ron Holland can give you competent minutes. But I know what you're saying. I think your point.
No, I'm not. He's super athletic. He's wildly talented. I get the bet. It's not like something I don't love it.
No, that's fine. And I will do. So I want to talk about this because I think the reason it makes sense to me, Collins, and I didn't love it either when it happened, but I also kind of shut my brain off the second I found out the Pistons were picking 5th overall. I didn't do it. I didn't read a single mock draft. I didn't look into any of this. I didn't watch tape on any of these guys. I didn't even care about Clingan, none of that, because once the Pistons got the number 5 overall pick after having the worst record in the league, I was just turned off. You know what I mean? Whatever they do, I'm not going to get mad at. You parlay that with the fact that it's Trajan Langdon's first pick, right? So it's like if Troy Weaver makes that pick and he picks Ron Holland, maybe I'm pissed, but I'm not, given the fact that it's Trajan Langdon's first pick and he's doing it at the time the Pistons hadn't even hired a coach, which is a joke. But anyways, let me work backwards here. Free agency. The theme was clearly three-point shooting, and I guess that's why I'm okay retroactively with Ron Holland, because he's not really a three-point shooter, because you did go out and get Tim Hardaway Jr. And Collins, I apologize for jumping all over you because I completely agree that you made a great point there. The whole point of that was, A, the Pistons have a ton of cap space. They got to fill it somehow. You might as well. Let's use it or lose it. And B, you got 3 picks with it. And I know Rabs likes to make the joke, and I agree, about how second-round picks in the NBA get thrown around like whatever, and you never know who's got what, and it is what it is. So it's not like he got a ton, but you're bringing Tim Hardaway Jr. over. He makes $16 million this season, and then he's a free agent. So whatever. You can cut bait with him. Anyone who's pounding the table upset about that deal, I don't really get it. He's a good shooter. Tobias Harris, welcome home. Good value. He's a good shooter. Good vet. good to have. He's kind of going to be like the Boban for this team, except he's actually a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball. And then Fontecchio is what it is.
We're paying him fucking $30 million. The reason he can't, he's trying. Tobias is to jump in there. I think it's good for both parties. I think that deal will be both.
Yeah.
Because if he's good this year, you can move that contract pretty easily.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's why they do a lot of those 2-year deals are that kind of deal. So no, I totally agree with you. I don't disagree on really anything you said. It's just I got to be patient, and I know Pistons fans are tired of being patient, but I do think that committing to Cade Cunningham with $224+ million is kind of a big deal, and that says a lot. And this is the last thing I'll say on the Pistons. I kind of find myself in this catch-22 of like, there's really no answer here. I want to give Goris credit for caring because I'm like, well, he made Monty Williams the highest paid coach in NBA history, and then he fires him and he eats all that money. And then I look and I see that Tom Goris's net worth is like $9.1 billion, and this means nothing. And does he really care? I don't know. But anyways, Rabs, if you have any thoughts on the Pistons, I'd love to hear it before we kind of move on, unless Colin says anything else. It's kind of I didn't like
the Holland move. I liked what they did in free agency. Someone who watched all the games, they actually have a competent roster, and you're finally going to get to see Cade with some spacing. Last year, the spacing was a fucking mess. And I think they're going to do this year where they're going to figure out if they want to pay Duren, if they want to pay Ivy, what they want to do with those two guys. I personally love Duren. I think Duren has the possibility to be a really good offensive player in this league. He needs to become more competent on defense because he's just too good of a physical athlete to play like he does on the defensive end right now. Ivy, I don't love Ivy, not gonna lie. But he was really given a shit hand last year. So you kind of need to see how he plays for the first 30, 40 games of the year. I'm not gonna act like I think he's going to turn into the superstar, but he has qualities that can make him an above-average player in this league. So you'll see that. But I like what they did. I like Beasley. You have a knockdown shooter there. Hardaway's like fine. He's a competent. They finally got some adults. And I truly, you get a motivated Tobias, and I think Tobias will have a nice year for the Pistons. Tobias is like never going to be an alpha dog. He's never going to be that, but I think he'll be really good for Cade. And I think he'll help this team a lot. And if he has a good year, that becomes an asset because you can move that next year and maybe get frisky with a big con. Know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Collins, I think.
And Fontecchio, that's a sneaky move that I really like. Them getting Fontecchio back for $8 million and it goes in their exception money. It's a great fucking – Fontecchio was pretty good. That was a – Yeah, one thing about him, he shoots a ton for a guy that I don't necessarily want him to be putting up that many shots. And at the end of the year, there was a lot of injuries, so I get it. But a guy that they to look out for is Fontecchio because I think Fontecchio is a guy capable, a younger guy that they take a chance on that possibly could be like, oh, this is a nice guy that we have. Not like a core piece, but a guy who could be in a 7-man rotation on a pretty competent team.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say, Rabs, is just I think this is an exciting time. As crazy as that sounds for a team that just won 14 games.
Cade is so good. I just say that every time, dude.
Yep, to commit to Cade, to give him the money, and to be like, all right, we're surrounding you with shooters. Here's what we got. And anytime you bring in a new GM and coach, and I'm not going to compare it to what the Lions did. I know what the Lions did was amazing, but it takes time. But anytime you get that culture shift, you get that fly out of the ointment or that poison out of the wound, because that's what, Weaver and what's his name? Monty Williams were for the last year, Dwayne Casey before. Like, it's been a long time coming, man. I'm just ready to see Cade in a competent environment like Collins is talking about. And Rabs, I want to hear your thoughts on any Piston stuff, and then we can move on.
Again, I will say this after every podcast. Cade Cunningham is really fucking good.
Yeah.
Really fucking good.
Yep.
And people say, oh, they're out there. I'm just saying he is very fucking good. So
watch the games.
You don't have to watch the games, but I'm just saying he is very, very good. And if he stays healthy, they will be on a good trajectory. I don't know. They're going to have to do a lot better work on the edges and who he's going to be complimented with too. And Asar, Ivy, and Duren need to come along. But I'm just telling you, Cade is a really good fucking young player. everyone was like getting up in arms about the Scotty Barnes, Franz Wagner deals. Like they're making the same money and stuff as Cade is now. I'm completely fine paying Cade Cunningham this money because I believe he will be worth it. So go ahead, Rabs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add. You guys always crush the Pistons talk, but I mean, the only the positive of it all is when things hit the fan and they're very noticeably hitting the fan. I just appreciate the fact that changes were made. That's it. I appreciate the fact that Troy Weaver wasn't allowed to stick around for another draft and another free agency period. I appreciate the fact that they just shook Monty's hand and said thanks, but no thanks. And again, I can't speak to how much Tom Gores cares about this team, but for a guy that probably could have just continued to sit back and cut his check to Monty Williams to coach this team into the ground, he at least stepped up and did something. So I think giving the money to Cade, I appreciate the fact that Cade, when he probably could have looked at the Pistons and been like, I don't know what you guys have shown me to make me believe that anything's going to work here. He signs his extension, and I think any like truly to me, and this is like a very similar thing with the Tarek Skubal thing. When you find a true premier player like that you go through drafts and scouting and trades and free agency to find, and you dump a player like that before you even get to see it through, I just think it's foolish. So good for Cade and well deserved. Like that is a piece that I would be sick to my stomach watching him play on a different team and be successful. So I don't know. I still like
they got to do something. We're at the point, like the thing about it is it's going to be very interesting this year because this is supposedly the best draft since I think in the last 7 or 8 years. So it's interesting.
The upcoming class,
very, very good draft class. So it's going to be very interesting what they decide to do with, you know what I mean? If they want to tank.
Sure.
Because there's a couple of generational guys in this class. It's not like the Wembanyama draft was like just Wemby and a couple of guys, and then there was a big drop. You know what I mean? Bigger drop off. Some nice players, but a lot more depth on this draft. So it's interesting to see what they'll do. So I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll see. And it seems like at least like it is. I couldn't tell you what this team's going to look like come opening night, but it at least sounds like it's going to be better and more exciting than it was before. So with that, we can. Competency. Yes, competency is it. I'm glad we have found that with the Pistons organization. It's about time. Wonderful. All right, we can move into the wing stuff before we wrap the show with Tigers. I'll sit up in my chair here because I have a lot to say. And you guys, I mean, I don't even know how we want to approach this. Okay, so let's start with this. I will turn it over to you guys, and I want you guys to direct the tenor of this conversation and what we talk about.
I want to just ask you, Rabs, and Trent can get in on this. Do you think the Wings got better or worse?
In terms of the lineup they're putting out on opening night, potentially.
How was the answer not better?
What?
Am I naive? How is the answer not better?
Did they address their needs, Rabs?
They didn't get worse.
No, that's fine. But I think what Rabs is shaking his head at is they have not really addressed their needs.
So maybe it's linear. I guess I just don't see there's any way they got worse. Everything I've read and seen, yeah, okay.
Raymond and Sider have yet to sign their extensions, which is a bit concerning at this point of the summer.
Well, I think, God, this is a fucking really tough question. I think on paper, in terms of the team they're putting out on the ice next year, I think they became marginally better. Yes, I think they are marginally better. The way in which they got to this point, I think causes a lot of concern for Red Wings fans. I think me saying they got marginally better versus significantly better is also a problem for Wings fans, because I think a lot of people were expecting them to go take a swing at Stamkos. I think they were expecting them to go take a swing at some other big name players that, and then like the name like Jacob Trouba gets thrown around for a potential trade. And so there's several things that happen that I will get into that I understand, and I will like kind of give my perspective on how I processed everything. But I will say they became marginally better in the offseason so far. And Trent, I will turn it to you because I know that you want to jump in here too, which I appreciate.
No, I just wanted to say, help me out. Is it Tarasenko? I almost said Tarasenko.
Tarasenko. Yeah.
You add him, you bring back Kane. How are you not at least a little bit better?
Well,
Which is what you said.
Tarasenko, good player, kind of at the end of his run. Kane looked great last year. That was a really nice
sign. At the end of his run, right?
No. Kane is obviously not the same player he was in Chicago, but he was probably the best offensive player there for an extended period of time for the Winds last year until Raymond really turned on the Jets when Larkin went out last year. Like, Larkin's the best player on the team, obviously, but he does it both ways. But like high danger chances, I thought for an extended period of time, Kane was the most dangerous man on the ice for the Winds. So I like that signing. The thing that I have, and I think that Rabs is kind of hinting around too, is they didn't get fucking better on the back end at all. And that is, and they basically made trades where let's just shuffle the deck with all these backup goalies. Like, and I'm not going to, and as a huge Michigan State hockey fan, as Michigan State guys, I kind of get what they're doing. I think they think Augustine or Kosa are going to be the guys. So they're kind of, the next couple of years are trying to piece it together until those guys are there. I would assume Augustine's going to be the guy. I think Augustine might win the Hobie this year. I think he's that special of a talent in that.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, oh, he's 2 or 3. I could see him being on the Winds at the end of next year if something, say Michigan State's an early out or something. I think he's that good of a player. And you saw he played with the world at the World Championships this year. I think one of the only college-age guys that was on that roster. Like, so the future is still bright, but they're in this weird purgatory where you just kind of feel like, why are we so old still? It's like the Rabs that you would always get mad about with the Tigers. Like, why are we getting these replacement guys and stuff like that? And it just feels like Yzerman is so lackadaisical about how there seems like there's zero urgency to this.
Okay.
And you know why?
I feel like I derailed this. I want to let Rabs continue his thing. My whole thing was.
I'm going to get it to Rabs. But
finish what you were saying, Collins.
The thing I think that is pissing off, and guess what? I don't think there was a perfect move out there for the Winds this year. I like the Tarasenko move on the margins. I would not have paid Stamkos that money. He's an old fucking player. I do think would he have made an impact in his first 2 years? Yes.
Scores a lot of goals.
No, I guarantee you he's going to have a big fuck you year for Nashville this year. I guarantee you. I'm not saying he's not going to. I'm not saying he doesn't have any mileage on the thing. I don't want to take that risk, though. I really don't. It's not like he was our fucking captain for third. You know what I mean? What do I owe Steven Stamkos? I felt like that was not the move. I like the Trouba move. There's clearly a lot of moving parts there. I could still see that possibly happening, maybe, but it just doesn't seem like he's willing to leave New York. So that's exactly the type of player they need in their back end. And he's not perfect. He's not fucking like some Norris Trophy candidate, but that's the kind of guy that I would like to see them get to kind of improve this roster a little bit. But like Rab says, what I was about to say though, it just feels so lackadaisical, and it seems like there's no urgency for this Winds team. And the reason he doesn't have urgency is because Steve Yzerman basically is the Red Wings owner. What the fuck is Chris Ilitch going to say to Steve Yzerman? Know what I mean? It's like the old thing with Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. Ward Manuel's not Steve. Like
you are giving Chris Ilitch way too much credit. Chris Ilitch will say, "No, you can't do that." He totally will.
He
will.
Yes.
No, Rabs, what are your thoughts on that?
He would not. Steve Yzerman can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Chris Ilitch is not shilling out shit for either one of the teams he owns.
It's a salary cap league. He doesn't have to shill out shit.
He won't do it. He hasn't done it yet, and he won't.
What are you talking about? The Tigers and the Red Wings are a completely different story.
I get it. You think he's going to – okay, penny
There's
the
no
Tigers.
salary
He's going to
cap
let
in
the
baseball.
Wings run
There's
wild?
a hard cap in NHL. Everyone spends the same money. So, you know what I mean? It doesn't –
whatever.
Unless you have a complete confident – Steve Yzerman is running the Red Wings. Rabs, am I wrong? I don't think that's a –
Well, it's just it's
the
more
success
so
and the
like,
failures fall on Steve Yzerman. This is no ownership interference in this. He's running the show and he gets to do whatever the fuck he wants to do.
Yeah, because it's one of those unique situations where your general manager is probably a top 3 sports icon in your town that is now back at the helm. So like I don't see a scenario in which Chris Ilitch is like, "Hey Steve, we haven't moved along as quickly as I would like. You're out of here." Like Steve Yzerman will walk on his own terms, which is whatever. And so I'm going to try my best to navigate all of this. And I know that when I do Red Wing stuff, it gets kind of all over the board, but I will say flat out, I will say that when, and I'll talk about the draft too, but when free agency opened up, it felt like this was going to be the year, and where I would have really liked to have seen Steve just take a swing. Like just take a swing and go sign someone, pull the money out of your pocket. What are you fist pumping for?
Sorry, Urshela just hit a 3-run homer. Sorry.
Really? And people give me shit about Gio all the time.
He's not good. Anyways, but that was nice.
He's one of the best players on the team. The team's awful. We'll get to the Tigers. Stay focused.
Sorry.
When free agency opened up, I was just expecting a bit more of a swing. And I guess you can't talk about free agency unless we move back and talk about some trades. And the trades that I will discuss starts on June 25th, so a couple days before the draft. And it's really a nothing trade at the end of it. The Red Wings signed Andrew Gibson to his entry-level contract. I feel like at the end of last season, they trade him away to Nashville. They bring back Jesse Kiskinen, which should mean nothing to anybody because it's just draft rights. And they acquire a second-round pick that's originally Tampa Bay's in that trade. So I look at that and I'm like, awesome, great move, Steve. You're moving a prospect that you probably don't see in the immediate future. You're bringing back a guy who's unsigned. So whether you sign him to a contract or not, whatever, but you got a second-round pick. Beautiful, love it. Let's, whether you're moving back into the first round, whatever you want to do, awesome. Then in the same day, a trade that kind of shocked a lot of Wings fans was Jake Wallman going to San Jose, which for some reason seems to be the Red Wings' favorite trade partner as of late. They also with that second-round pick for essentially nothing.
Yeah, they attached the pick, which I think everyone kind of thought like he kind of had some value.
Yeah, what so like I see that trade and I'm
how much money
yes.
We're having some connection issues. How much money was Wallman making? Because it was a clear cap dump.
Like 3.4.
Okay. Go ahead.
3.4 million. I think he has another year after this year. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, what is going on? And my first thought, because Jake Wallman was hurt at the end of last season, he was out of the lineup for a bit. He tried to make his way back in the lineup. He wasn't the player that he was at the beginning of the year, and he was getting healthy scratched in some games down the stretch. But Jake Wallman's also a guy that was playing on your first pair with Mo Seider for a large majority of the season last year. And so I'm thinking, is something wrong medically? Is something wrong mentally? Are they about to buy Jake Wallman out to the point where they just feel like, you know what? We don't want to have any dead money, so we're going to move him. And then you hear in the media that if Jake Wallman were to be waived, San Jose gets first dibs on the waiver wire, and they were probably going to pick Jake Wallman up. So I think everyone was surprised by the second round pick in a $3.4 million cap dump, which I get. The Wings had a second round pick, but still, a second round pick is very valuable in the NHL. It ain't like the NBA. It's very valuable. So to lose that pick was more of a concern to me. And when we look at the defense, and I'll get a bit more into that later, Jake Wallman was not the first name on my list of guys that needed to move. He just wasn't. And I'll get into it a bit in a second, but I think that move stunned a lot of Wings fans, but still Wings fans are holding out hope. Like there's clearly another move coming, which there hasn't been. The next move that was made that I believe happens after the draft, which is another cap dump situation. Robbie Fabry and a fourth round pick go to Anaheim, go to Pat Verbeek, which was obviously Steve Yzerman's assistant general manager for a bit here in Detroit. And coming back is a nothing ECHL goalie in Gage Alexander. So a true bona fide cap dump, which makes sense. And here's your fourth round pick, which would have been fine that you sent with Wallman. And you move on. So those are your moves that are made. No one really comes in of value here. It is cap dump. It is attaching picks to make to incentivize people to take the money and whatnot. Ryan Collins, go ahead. What's happening right now? Oh, Malloy.
Just tied
awesome.
it up. They're on 6-0. Malloy just hit a home run at 7-7. Don't let the Tigers get hot.
A lot of game to play.
I'm
a lot
joking.
of game to play.
They're going to lose this game. I've watched the Tigers in the last 10 years, but
No.
But Rabs, when you said you thought there'd be another move to make, and we just talked about this, and we already kind of talked about it, they agreed to the deal with New York. Like Trouba was on his way. He just blocked the deal. So
are you watching this?
Oh, well, that I wasn't aware. I'm not watching anything.
So what's it? And it's not a Red Wings thing. It's basically he wants to stay in New York, and he's trying to exhaust all the options he can before they maybe buy him out or something. So I don't think it's a Red Wings thing, and he could end up on the team. But if the deal, and I don't know this for a fact, but the deal would have gotten done if he didn't put the Wings on his modified no trade list. So, and I think that's been reported on. So.
Okay, well.
So if you want to give Yzerman a break,
great piece of information.
If you want to give an Yzerman a break,
I was going to say, if anything, if anything, I mean, if it was Jacob Trouba, great. If it was Jacob Chikrin who got moved to the team escapes me, but he got moved for nothing. So, I mean, those things can frustrate Wings fans. I understand that. And now I guess we can get into free agency because we'll talk about the draft in a second. It was a very dull free agency period for the Red Wings. And you listen to Steve Yzerman talk. And at first I was very worked up. What is this team doing? They're going backwards. There's like seriously no urgency for this team to get better. It is just the same recycled bullshit of aging players on team-friendly deals that are taking up space for young players, and what are we doing here? And when you listen to Steve Yzerman talk in his press conference, and this is where like you almost have to admire the guy in this respect, because he is not going to budge on what his plan is for this team. He's just not. And I feel like this was in this most recent press conference he did was the first time in a long time that I've heard Steve Yzerman make a commitment to the kids, essentially, and just saying that, like, we are committed to playing the long game. We are committed to building a team of young players that can carry this team to the future. Steve Yzerman is not looking at this 2 to 3 year window. He is looking at the 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 year window, which I understand as Wings fans, you're probably upset with because it's been so long. But in his defense, like, he now has a pool of prospects that he has drafted and is trying to develop that are on the cusp of making the jump. And so I believe the lack of moves in free agency, and what I would hope that this means for this team, is that you are going to see a Nate Danielson. You are going to see a Marco Casper. You are going to see a Jonathan Berggren play full-time NHL minutes this year. You might see Carter Mazer, Albert Johansson, who signed a 1-year extension that Steve Yzerman name dropped in his press conference, that this is a guy we expect to play this season. So for me, while I would probably tell you, I think it's a year or two too late to see some of these guys, I just think this is what Steve Yzerman has been planning all along. Like, you want to talk about the Yzer plan. He knows better than anyone when these prospects are ready to play and when they need more seasoning, whether it's with their junior club or the Grand Rapids Griffins or whatever that may be. So now I feel like he is finally ready to make that commitment to, like, hey, we're not going to fill the lineup with the Pew Suitors of the world. We're not going to fill the lineup with the Mitchell Stevens and the Adam Ernies and all these stopgap, dink and dunk players that mean nothing to us that we're going to move for mid-round picks. Like, these positions on this roster are going to be filled out by guys that played in Grand Rapids this last year. I don't know what all those names are, because when you look up and down the roster, there's not a lot of room that you can budge here. I mean, you lose Robbie Fabry, you lose Jake Wallman, but you also bring in Vladimir Tarasenko, who we'll talk about. They did extend qualifying offers to Veleno, Berggren, Raymond, Seider. We'll get into that in a second too. But there isn't as much flexibility as maybe you would hope, and that's where I start to look at contracts like Andrew Kopp, who's stealing $5.5 million from this team for the next 3 years. And that's a guy that I would hope, like, if you're going to dump salary, get rid of Andrew Kopp. Like, just a fucking nothing. Like, and I'm sure he's a great dude and he played at U of M. But, like, that to me is where I get frustrated, because now that I'm looking, like, down the center of the lineup, I would assume that you roll out next season with Larkin centering the first line, Comfer centering the second line, Kopp centering line 3, and in Joe Veleno centering line 4, which then makes me think, like, where does Marco Casper fit in here? Is he not going to play center at the NHL level? Where does Nate Danielson fit in? Are you really not going to let him play to start the season? And that's all fine, but I just think a lot of these moves that were made, or lack thereof, are because we're now finally entering the year or two where these kids are going to get a chance to go. And he's been very cautious. He's been very close to the chest about it. But I believe he's trying to surround these kids with real NHL players to allow them the chance to grow and develop while maintaining a solid culture here in Detroit. So with that being said, if we do want to talk about free agent signings, you lose, who did I just say that they lose David Perron to free agency, which I don't have any issue with whatsoever. David Perron was a nice player here as an aging player who's been there, done that. I believe won the Stanley Cup with St. Louis if he was still on that team. Good goal scorer at one point. Yeah, good goal scorer at one point in his career, played in a lot of different situations. There was a really nice stretch with the Wings here when David Perron was like the best player on the team for a couple weeks, but you lose him to Ottawa. I have no problem with it whatsoever. Not a guy that I care to see on this team anymore. Obviously, Fabry goes as far as a trade is concerned. So now you're opening up 2 forward spots. One gets taken by Tarasenko. Shane Gostisbehere does not come back on defense for you. And that, to me, is the head scratcher. And this is where I just think it kind of comes down to money, because he only signed for like 3 years, $3.5 million back in Carolina. And I was expecting him to get a lot more based on what he did last year. I mean, it was a force to be reckoned with on the power play. I think he had like 58 points. I was expecting him to land maybe more in the $5 million range, but I mean, Carolina gets him on a very team-friendly deal. They'll be pleased with him. Shane Gostisbehere probably had one of the better years in his career in recent memory since he was in Philadelphia. But nonetheless, they bring in Eric Gustafsson to kind of fill in that role of like your more offensively minded defenseman. I think he played with Patrick Kane and maybe DeBrincat for a year in Chicago, which whatever. But to your point, Collins, like they did not get much better on defense. No. And that's where I think people have a right to be frustrated, is just looking at where this team is. And, Steve Yzerman talks about liking their defensive depth, which I understand to an extent, but it's not like they have any of these game breakers down there. And you're at a point now where we've kind of had this issue for the last couple of years where it's like you only have so much ice to go around, and Sider's going to be there, Edvinson's going to be there, Sherratt's going to be there. Unfortunately, Jeff Petrie's going to be there because he has a no move clause. You have Justin Hall in the mix. Now you have Eric Gustafson. You sign Lagesson for on a 1-year, 2-year deal, whatever it may be. And we're still talking about Albert Johansson. So now we're talking about 8-9 defensemen that we're going to try to fit into 6 spots. So I don't know what the answer is. And that's why I also can't tell you with confidence what they're supposed to do if they do go get a guy like Trouba, because that's a lot of money that you're going to pay. And assuming that the Rangers are going to eat some of his money if the deal even gets done, which it seems like, why are we even talking about it if it's not going to happen? But I just don't, I don't understand where these guys fit in. And this is where I wish I was in these conversations with these people of like, clearly no one wants Jeff Petrie. Now, granted, no move clause. He's probably not going anywhere. He knows he shouldn't be in the league anymore at 36 years old. He's making $2.5 million playing for a team in which he watched his dad play almost his entire MLB career on. So great situation for him. He can enjoy his last year playing in the league because he is fucking terrible, and he should be scratched every single night for this team. And if they don't do it, I won't watch a game. Then now we're talking about guys like Justin Hall. And I am so sick and tired of hearing Steve Yzerman talk about, we don't want to have all this money not in the lineup every night. That was the worst contract that has been signed in the NHL in the last 10 years. Justin Hall, like people in Toronto were sending this guy death threats because he was playing for their team. And you go and sign him for a 3-year, $3.5 million deal for what? To sit on the bench? That is not a guy that you want playing in the lineup every night for the Red Wings. I promise you. And if they're going to roll out Petrie and Justin Hall on the ice, whether it's together, whether it's in 2 separate pairings, you're right, Collins. They didn't get any better. It makes no sense. So clearly, some of these guys were signed to either with their no move clauses or how bad their contracts are. No one wanted these guys. And so now you're forced to dump a Wallman. Now you're forced to let Ghost go. And you're right, Collins, you did extend qualifying offers, so you still extend the negotiation time frame. You got to get Sider signed. You got to get Raymond signed. You got to get Veleno signed. And you got to get Bergeron signed. So those are your priorities.
I don't understand how that's not done. Am I wrong?
Who knows? It's not. It's not a
Rabs,
huge deal.
The NBA works a lot differently than the NHL in that. So I think maybe that it's before training camp, maybe, or by the time training camp's done. If it's not done by the start of the regular season, there's an issue. Maybe it's more like the NFL in that aspect. But when I thought the window opens, it's just like they've discussed this. The agents have it kind of locked down. They know what the number is. But, I mean, you kind of saw this with Larkin, and Stevie Y is going to knock out, drag out on these extensions. And to his credit, I mean, Larkin's on a fucking steal of a contract already, I think. And you could credit that to Larkin for taking.
Totally.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. I just want that shit done. You know what I mean?
No, I agree, and I'm curious as to what the number is going to be, because if it were up to me, and again, we can play revisionist history, but these are between Sider and Raymond, the price that you could have got if you signed them to extensions before last season or during last season, you're going to be paying a lot more for them now. I appreciate that they're giving Joe Veleno another chance. I appreciate they're letting Jonathan Bergeron get a real chance. I am stunned that Jonathan Bergeron wants to stick around here after what this organization has put him through the last couple of years. But at the end of the day, I mean, I look up and down this lineup, and yeah, I think it's a bit more complete. I mean, I feel like I've been jumping all over the place here, but we can talk the 2 signings that happened. You know, Patrick Kane comes back on a 1-year deal. There's a lot of incentives and bonuses worked into his deal, but I think at bottom, it's a $4 million contract. I think it's a fair price. It's well-deserved. If he plays well this year, he's probably getting another year or two here, depending on how he feels. I have no idea. He's 35 years old. Tarasenko is 32, comes over on a $4.75 million deal for 2 years. If this was like 5 years ago for Vladimir Tarasenko, I would be like over the moon with this guy in terms of just point production and goal scoring and effectiveness up and down the ice. But he really hasn't been himself in the last couple of years. I'm not entirely sure of, like, with his injury history. It seems like for the last 5 years or so, he's just been weirdly in and out of the lineups. He had 41 points for Ottawa in 57 games last year before being dealt to Florida, where he had 14 points in 19 games. Only had 9 points in 24 games in the playoffs. But talk about a guy that's been there, done that. I mean, I think he has 2 cups now, right? And is a guy in a leadership position in St. Louis. I think there were some feathers ruffled there because he felt like he should have been named captain when it was given to Ryan O'Reilly. So he kind of wanted out of there. But I mean, you hear him talk about the Red Wings organization in terms of just being a kid growing up in Russia and seeing the Russian Five and guys like that, Suk, and it was a desirable spot for him.
I had no idea Tarasenko was Russian, by the way, until I saw that interview. No idea.
You didn't know Vladimir Tarasenko was Russian?
I don't know, just something. It didn't come to mind for some
Canadian
reason. Dude, this is why they need
whatever. But he is very Russian.
Yeah, that's why they need it back.
Yeah, he is extremely Russian. But I guess in turn, and Yzerman kind of addressed him as a top 6 to top 9 forward. But like, there's your top 6 for next year, guys. It's some combination of Larkin, Kane, Raymond, Comfer, Tarasenko, and DeBrincat. Like, that's your top 6, which is fine. And like, you just have to hope that Derek Lalonde puts these guys in positions with his line combinations to where it makes sense. And to look further down the lineup, I mean, you're probably going to see another line with Kopp, Rasmussen, and Fisher, and then you have to fill out the bottom of your lineup with a Veleno. Is it a Carter Mazer? Is it a Marco Kasper? Is it a Nate Danielson? Like, who are going to be those guys that fill out the bottom half of your roster there? Is Elmer Soderblom going to get another chance? Tyler Mott was signed for the league minimum, I believe. So I don't know what to tell you. They got marginally better, and I think that they are now, I shouldn't say now like they haven't been, but they're like, he is leaning on the future of this team being built through the draft. That's all it is. It's prospects, it's trades, it's not going to happen through free agency, clearly, and I'm not necessarily mad at them for not throwing $8 million a year for the next 4 years at Steven Stamkos. Like, that's just not what Steve Yzerman does. He is not the type of general manager. Yeah, he's not the type of general manager to go throw these numbers out in this term out to guys that it doesn't make sense for him, just for the sake of trying to get in the playoffs now and win with this random conglomeration of players. He is bringing guys here on deals that are team friendly. It's short term for the most part, with good money, to where if it doesn't work out, you're probably getting flipped and you have some value. If it does, good for you. If it gets to a point where there's other younger guys that can replace you, like, I got news for you, Jeff Petrie. This is your last year in the league. It just is. Justin Hall, same deal. If you're not going to perform, Ben Sherratt, like, there are guys, Axel Sandin Pellico, William Alinder, Antti, like, these guys are on the cusp of coming up. And so that's a big year for some younger guys like that. The last thing I'll touch on before I get to the draft is the goalie situation. I don't know what the fuck is going on, to be completely honest with you. I
will say this, and NHL the last I feel like the last 3 to 4 years, I feel like these goalies are a crapshoot. Talbot objectively has a better track record than Husso and Lyon. Like, he will sure up the day-to-day goaltending situation, at least. I'm not acting like he's gonna win them a bunch of games, but he is, again, they're like we were talking about Pistons, he's a competent goalie.
Well, Cam Talbot's had a very interesting career, because I feel like looking back at God, it must have been, it feels like over a decade ago now, and I'll try to pull his stats up real quick. Yeah, the year I'm thinking of, the 2013-14 season for the New York Rangers, he played 21 games with a 1.64 goals against average and a 941 save percentage. I believe he was the backup at that time, and that kind of catapulted his career into like, okay, Cam Talbot can be a legit starter in this league. And if you look at his numbers, he had a couple bad stretches, but for the most part, like last year, 913 save percentage and a 250 goals against average for the Kings, where he saw a million shots a game. Like, yeah, he's 37. And a fun fact, the guy that did my driver's ed was actually his uncle, believe it or not. That's the cool tidbit there. But like, yeah, that's a steady goaltender that, of course, he's aging, but he's a better goalie than James Reimer. That's also the same age. And I believe that he'll probably split the net with Ville Husso, and you have to really figure out what you have in Husso this year. Injuries shouldn't be a concern. He's going to come 100% healthy into training camp. It's just a matter of staying healthy. So I would tell you right now in complete confidence that Cam Talbot and Ville Husso are your two goalies for this upcoming season. Sebastian Cossa is going to see much more of a workload in Grand Rapids than he did last year. This Gage Alexander character they just got from Anaheim, I anticipate being in the ECHL. I don't believe there's going to be a spot for him in Grand Rapids because you also went out and got Jack Campbell, who is a native of Michigan at some point in his life. I believe he's from Port Huron, who had a really nice story, fought and scratched and clawed in the AHL for a while, finally got a shot in the NHL. Had some ups and downs, was really good for a little bit of time, and then went to Edmonton, and that contract didn't really work out for him. So I assume that Jack Campbell is going to be in the AHL this year, splitting time with Sebastian Cossa, which is fine. And then your kicker's Alex Lyon. So between Lyon and Campbell, I mean, they're probably going to carry three goalies unless they decide not to, and they'll trade one of these guys. So they're clearly not ready to hand the net over to Cossa yet, which is fine. I just think that it is a bit more of a competent team.
Rabs?
I kind of Kossa's 22,
Okay.
21. It's 21.
Can I
A lot of time.
question?
Go ahead, Trent.
So what I'm gathering here is maybe the Wings didn't address like the back line as much as they should have. If they would have done that, would you be okay with throwing Cossa in there now?
Goalies are so hard, and I think people need to understand that it takes a lot longer for goalies. It takes a lot longer for goalies than it does your average player. You don't see many goalies come into the league at like 18, 19, 20, 21 and just all of a sudden get thrown in to take a shit ton of games. I think Kossa's right where he needs to be. He's going to get to play a full season in Grand Rapids this year with, as the number one guy. Not that he wasn't last year, but they used Michael Hutchinson a lot. So he's going to be the number one guy at 21, 22 years old. This is Ville Husso's last year. So unless he puts on an unbelievable showing and you extend him, like it could be Cossa and Talbot next year. So to me, it's not so much what the rest of the team looks like as much as it's just what does Sebastian Cossa look like. So, I mean, again, I understand the frustration because people want to see these names that they've heard of and they're getting excited, and I get it. But like, if they're not ready, they're not ready. I just always kind of lean back on it. Hockey is super, super, super tricky to do this with. But like, I'm more of the assumption of like, if you're going to go out and sign Justin Hull and have him never play, just let Edvinsson come up. And I get it. You want him to play the big minutes in Grand Rapids. Fine. But it's about time that we start seeing some of these younger players, and I do believe that we'll see that this upcoming season. So in closing, before I quickly rifle through the draft picks, I was very upset when free agency hit. I wanted to see more, but the bottom line is they have some money tied up in some guys. They know Steve Yzerman knows the guys he likes. Some guys are probably harder to move than others. I have to imagine there's a part of Steve Yzerman that's kicking himself for the Andrew Kopp deal, but it continues to be a commitment to the future and to the young guys, and he doesn't want to sign guys to long-term contracts that when it's time for Albert Johansson, when it's time for William Olinder, when it's time for Axel Sandin Pellikka, he doesn't want to have guys tied up in big money that are taking away their minutes. And so I understand it's frustrating. I understand that people don't want to hear that ASP is going back to Sweden again for another year. I understand people are going to be frustrated if they don't see Danielson and Casper right away. I get it. I'm frustrated too because there's a lot of other teams that got better this offseason, and I don't think the Wings got all that much better, but you're just going to have to keep playing the waiting game. And I'm sure, trust me, if it wasn't Steve Yzerman at the helm and it's just some random Joe Schmo, we're all probably calling for his job. But for a guy of this caliber of human being and hockey mind, like, you have to trust him. You're going to have to live and die by what Steve Yzerman does because he ain't going anywhere. Real quickly, before we move on, draft coverage. The Wings picked 15 in this year's draft. And what's going on here with this computer? Unbelievable. I was not all that blown away by what they did in the draft this year. And again, once you kind of get into the weeds of these later rounds, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know everything about these guys, but at 15, I think it was probably the most chalky pick for the Red Wings in terms of the blueprint that they want. They go with Michael Brandsäg Nygard from Hockey Allsvenskan, which is the second league over in Sweden. I believe he was the first Norwegian ever selected in the first round of an NHL draft, which is very cool.
Right.
6'1", 207 pounds. Probably a guy that's going to project to play in your top 6 on the wing. And he had one of the better shots in the draft. Everything about his game seems to be at about NHL level, or will project to be NHL level in the top 6. I was actually reading some like player comparisons, and Tyler Bertuzzi comes up a lot as far as player comps, which, I mean, however you feel about that as a Wings fan is great, but I think he's just a very well-rounded forward. He plays hard, he plays physical. I think they really like his compete level. He's not much of a playmaker, but he'll drive the net. He's got a great shot, and I think he'll be a very good NHL forward playing in your middle of the top 6. Not a guy you can expect to see for a bit of time. I'm sure he'll move up and play in the SHL next year. But just a two-way winger, plays a 200-foot game, and I'm just throwing you random hockey jargon that some people might not understand, but good pick, solid pick, safe pick, which is fine. I know a lot of people wanted to take the other Yzerman, not related, from the U.S. national team development program, just based on goal scoring ability, but I think you're getting a much more well-rounded forward here in Nygard, and so don't expect him for a couple years. Other guys that were taken, Max Plant was taken from the national team development program. But Steve Yzerman took, was it 3? He took 3 players off the national team development program in this year's draft, which people always give Yzerman crap for. He loves the Swedes. He loves the international players. But one of the better forwards for the national team last year. He's a little bit undersized as a center. Just a really good playmaker. I don't know if he's dynamic enough to be like a true mainstay in the NHL for the Wings, but, you know, a guy that you'd like to have in your system, because I think the ceiling for him is pretty high, in a similar way for Andre Becher, that I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly. He's from the Czech Republic, so I'm not really brushed up on my Czechia language and whatnot. I do apologize, but this was like a cool pick for me, because you want to talk about finally taking a swing. A name that really wasn't on anyone's radar last year, and like overnight became one of the best forwards in the WHL this last season. So really good skater, really high compete level, which I know is another thing that the Red Wings always look for. In terms of where he fits into the NHL roster at some point, I really couldn't tell you. But I think he's got a lot of potential. They also take Landon Miller, goaltender from the Sioux Greyhounds, John Whipple, defenseman from the U.S. National Team Development Program, Austin Baker, forward from the U.S. National Team Development Program, and Fisher Scott, defenseman from Colorado in the NCAA. The other guy I want to mention that I was doing a lot of reading on is this Charlie Forsland character who played juniors in Sweden this last season. 6'3", 212 pounds.
Any
there were a lot of
relation to
people that
John?
were. I don't believe so. John Forsland. Who's John Forsland?
NHL. He announces for the Kraken. He's on TNT. He's great.
Does he? I didn't know that.
Yes, John Forsland. Sorry, go
For
ahead.
the Kraken? No idea. But people really like that pick. And it sounds like he's got a great frame at 6'3", 212. He's still playing junior hockey. And I actually think that he's supposed to play for the team that Nygaard played for this year in Hockey Allsvenskan. So I don't know. I don't think it was a very, very it was somewhat of an underwhelming draft. A lot of draft grades, whatever that means to people, are there, they're sitting in the B-, C+ range. So whatever. But we'll look, there's a lot to get organized on. Development camps going on, though. I'm sure they'll play they play the tournament in Traverse City every year with the prospects. Then we get to training camp, and as this roster shapes up and more moves happen, it'll be much easier to see the picture. I am just excited to see the opening night roster. I would love to see Mazer on it. I would love to see Danielson on it. I would love to see Casper on it. I would love to see Johansson on it. I would love to see Edvinsson on it, who obviously will be on it. And Wings fans are going to have to wait a bit for Axel Sandin Pellikka because it sounds like he's going back to Sweden. So that's all I have for you guys on the Red Wings front. I know that was a lot. I anticipate that you guys don't have anything to add or say because you're probably sick of me talking about it, and we can move on to Tigers. If you
they just need to get better on the defensive end. It just says it's literally been since Nick Lidstrom has retired. I have not felt comfortable with their back end. Know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to think that it's.
Yeah, I do.
Know what I mean? Like, they really have not.
Yeah.
And maybe Sider becomes that really shutdown guy. Last year, I saw moments where he looked like that guy and moments where I was like, this guy might barely be a top 4 defenseman. So I'm hoping he turns into a Norris-type player, kind of shores up that back end, and you get better depth guys. Because when you look back, it wasn't just Lidstrom. They had Rafalski, who was a really good player. Brad Stewart and Cronwell were your second pair, both like really good defensemen. Like, they weren't the best, but they knew their role. And even like with that 5th and 6th, like you had guys who you didn't really love, but you had like shutdown guys. You know what I mean? They just felt like they were more well constructed on the back end there. And when they had Lidstrom, and it's a lot easier when you can just plug in a Hall of Famer and the best defenseman of all time in there. But I'm just saying, it's not just that; it's just around the edges. I wish that they would have more competency there. I do like the Gustafsson, the guy from the Rangers. I think he's pretty solid. I think that was a nice.
Yeah, I mean it's a true replacement for Ghost, which you get him for probably, I don't know, not $1 million, but close to $1 million cheaper in Gustafsson that you would Gostisbehere. The thing I like about Gustafsson's game is that he's a little bit bigger, not too big. He can play both sides defensively, and he's much more defensively responsible. Like Shane Gostisbehere was a defensive liability for the large part of last season, but Gustafsson should be much better in that regard. So I don't know. We'll see how things shape up. Trent, they got marginally better in my opinion. They didn't make any big splashes. That's why people are upset. They're upset because they didn't sign Stamkos. They're upset because they didn't throw money at these big guys and make all these trades and get Trouba or be in the ring for whose name's escaping me, Sergachev. Like that. That's why people are upset. No one cares about the draft because you don't see these guys for a little bit of time. And I just think it's time to start seeing some young players, which I appreciate. Robbie Fabry was an awesome player here. That was one of the best trades I've ever seen, losing Jacob De La Rose for Robbie Fabry. I don't even know if De La Rose plays hockey anymore. Was very serviceable here. The guy had 3 fucking ACL surgeries. God bless him. Doesn't have a spot in this lineup. Sorry. He's not a top 6 forward. He can play in your middle 6. He can play in your bottom 6, which is fine. They have other guys that can do that are cheaper and that are younger. So there you go. Tigers, real quick. Collins only wanted to do 10 minutes on it because he sounds like he's frustrated, but now that he's been fist pumping all podcast and the Tigers are making a strong comeback here, maybe a different tenor.
I don't know. They're about to lose. So let's actually talk about it for 5 minutes.
Hang on. As we record live in real time, Andrew Chafin gets out of the jam. Bases loaded. It's 7-7 in the bottom of the 8th.
By the way, dude, this bullpen, whatever. We can talk about the Tigers longer. It's really hard for me, other than talking about the Green and Skubal making the All-Star game.
Well,
And Colt Keith having a really nice little stretch here. He's been good since almost the end of May. So, other than that, it's kind of hard for me to even, do topic. I don't know if you guys have another topic.
No, I'm sorry.
We can do updates and check-ins, but they're basically the same team they've been the last fucking 3 years.
Yeah, I'll turn it back over to Rabs. I'm sorry for interrupting there. I just got fired up because Andrew Chafin forced the bases loaded.
You almost fucking walked him in.
I know. That's what I'm saying. He worked out of a 3-1 count and got out of the jam. So I'm fired up.
I thought that was gone, by the way.
Love Chafin. Take it easy. Is it pouring rain downtown? My Uncle Steven from Arizona is bitching that they should cancel the game. Is it pouring?
No.
It's raining, but it's not like downpouring.
Whatever.
15 minutes from downtown, it's raining a bit.
Tigers news, first order of business. Riley Green, Tarek Skubal, first-time All-Stars. They are your 2 All-Stars for the Tigers. So this is a nice tidbit that you threw on here, Trent. The first time the Tigers have had 2 All-Stars since Justin Upton and Michael Fulmer in 2017. Of course,
I had no idea Upton made the All-Star game. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah. Yes.
I remember him having that big of a year for the Tigers.
He was good. He was good.
No, he was good. I'm not saying he wasn't good.
Yeah.
I just don't. I remember him being a super streaky player. I don't remember him ever making an All-Star team.
Well, yeah, no, he'd be the best player on this team right now. But Rabs, there is an asterisk there. You want to read it off?
Yeah, was it about how Miggy played in the All-Star game with Michael Lorenzen, but I think Miggy was more of a charity vote. Not to say not disrespectfully.
Correct.
But that's cool. I mean, 2 deserving guys. Like, I'm glad Riley Green got an All-Star nod. Good for him. Obviously for Skubal, absolutely, but good for Riley Green.
Absolutely. We kind of talked about the Tigers at Keith looks good. There is positives and stuff like that, but like at some point, they have to win. They have to make moves. Like it's so tiring to just talk about the same shit. That hey, I saw a stat the other day that this team's 35 and 28 when they score more than 2 runs.
Yep.
That's fucking absurd. If they had an average offense, this team is 10 games over.
Well, it's just average. It speaks to how it's 2 things. It's how good the pitching is and how bad the offense is. And we've been talking about this all season long, to your point, Collins. But I guess I more just wanted to shout out Riley Green.
Yeah.
Shout out Tarek Skubal. And just kind of we're coming up here on the All-Star break. And that I think is where we're going to be able to reevaluate what we're working with here. Because then we got the trade deadline a couple weeks.
They're on a 4-game winning streak. They play 3 more games. They have the run of this game if they are able to somehow win this game. And then they play 5 games against Cleveland and LA. And it's basically however they kind of finish out this week, I think they're sellers regardless. But I think you could tell in this locker room that if they want to keep the team a little bit together and give themselves a little bit breathing room before the debt, know what I mean? They're going to have to basically only drop 2 games here and win.
They got to win both series. Win both series. Yep.
Which there's 7 games fucking out of the wild card, so it's not even that they're fucking even remotely. They got to get close. They got to get back to 500 and then kind of adjust after that. If we want to have that conversation, I'm not willing to have that conversation yet. They've just
not yet. Yeah, I'm with you.
Inconsistent at the plate. But yeah, Green's had a really nice year. And it's really fucking annoying that they have 0 protection for him. Because I think he would be having an even better year. Because the way his approaches is so good. I like what he does with 2 strikes. I just love his approach. In the field, he's not typically the player that I thought he was going to be, but he's still solid. But at the plate, he's great. So I'm really happy to see him make the All-Star team, get the recognition he deserves, even on this piss-poor lineup. And Skubal, if they fucking trade him in the next year and a half, I might not be a Tigers fan ever again. Anyone who thinks they should trade him should go fucking duck. What the fuck?
Any of that talk, I think, is just fodder. I think it's just stuff that classic bullshit.
They act like he has fucking a year left on his deal after this year. He has 3 years left. Yeah,
they're not going to trade him. But Rabs, what are your thoughts on the Tigers? Any quick thoughts?
Well, yeah, my quick thoughts. It's been hard to watch this team. I know they're coming off of a 4-game win streak.
Literally.
Yes, it sounds like it's only going to get harder to watch them because there's some type of contract dispute again with by the end of July, Bally Sports might not exist. I have no idea what's going on. I'm not entirely sure. Also, we'll talk about this off air, and we address it next week. But we're not gonna touch some drama around some members of the Bally Sports staff, which are no longer on the staff. We'll move on from that. We'll move on from that. Not gonna touch it. Not gonna touch it.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Not good. Not
just
good.
Be a good person. Be a good person. But yeah, I mean, it's like, to be honest with you, Trent, and I know you have this in here. Like, if the Tigers win this series against the Guardians, are you all the way back in? Or
No.
And like your things of like the season was over, now it's not. Like, they suck. They're terrible. They're terrible. They're not a good team. They're not going to be good this year. They're not making the play.
No, Rabs.
Okay,
they're not making the playoffs.
Their pitching has been really good.
They're not good. They're going to trade Flaherty, and they're probably going to make some other moves. So
okay, hang on. My thoughts on this, just real quick, is that they could win. I mean, we're sitting here at 7-7. I know the 8th just ended. Fuck. But the Tigers, if they win this series against the Guardians, and then they go out and win the series against the Dodgers at home, going into the All-Star break, you'll have a nice 5-day stretch to breathe and think on this. And I'm just saying, I'm not out.
The deadline's what? Not for another month, I believe.
Yeah, it's the 30th or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I truly believe for this team to stick together, they got to basically win their next 15 out of 20 games. They actually have to get like red hot, which I just don't. That's not going to happen with this roster. They're not good enough. The one thing,
correct.
The one thing that I think you could say about this year that we probably couldn't say is that I think you literally actually have viable, like, good major league players finally on this roster, not just like flashing a plan. Know what I mean? Like,
no, I completely disagree with that, except for Skubal and like Riley Green. No, what do you mean?
They never had Skubal, Reese Olson, but good major league players. Jason Foley, good major league.
Okay, you're naming all pitchers. I guess I was thinking more in the field.
Guys that hit.
Who hits?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying from a roster standpoint, you look at this roster. I'm not saying they're good. I'm saying pitching is in a good spot. You have Riley Green, who's an all-star, your first homegrown. I'm assuming that's their first homegrown position player to make the all-star. I would like to see that stat to make the all-star game since Inge, probably. And I don't even know if Inge was a
Did Castellanos make one?
Oh, Joe Jimenez. Joe Jimenez.
I'm saying field. I'm saying played the field.
Okay. Oh, no, okay. that took a weird turn.
No. I tried.
That's my bad.
They're shit. They're not good. I will say this though. Cole Keith. I've been saying this all year. If you've watched it, I think he's going to be a pretty solid player. I think that you're seeing him kind of turn the corner. They're going to have to figure out what they want to do with him in the field because he is not a long-term second base option. So they're going to have to figure that out. I like him. I think he's starting to come on. Wenzel's kind of going back and forth. I think he's a solid baseball player. I like their catching situation. Rogers and Kelly have been pretty solid behind the dish. And Green's really good. And Kerry Carpenter's really good when he plays. So, the problem is they went out this – if they went out this offseason, and the problem – you could argue there wasn't – if they went out and got like JD Martinez or they went out and got fucking anybody in the middle of this lineup that could just protect Green a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you could see those numbers explode even more. I'm just saying this team's not good enough to make the playoffs. They're not going to. They're going to sell. They should sell. My only ask is when they sell for Flaherty, we talked about this at the deadline, you get an actual major league bat. And I understand that will be hard to do at the deadline, but when you're looking to trade this guy, find bats. Find guys that can make an impact next year on this roster because I don't know what they're going to do this offseason again because they're in the same fucking situation that they were last year, and I don't see them doing a whole lot. They'll probably bring John up, and then they'll probably fucking try Torkelson again. And I don't who fucking knows how that will go? Probably badly. So, I mean, what is Torkelson hitting in AAA? Like 250?
I don't know. I will say You probably. I will. And the unfortunate reality, too, is I don't think Alex Lang has been very good in Toledo, and I don't think Matt Manning has been very good as of late either. He's got like a 5
Well,
ERA.
Kenta Maeda is the worst pitcher in Major League Baseball. So if he takes the mound again.
Oh, Kenta Maeda. Well,
Yeah, how
that's
about
what I
this? How
mean,
about
dude.
this?
It's such
Rabs,
an
you're right.
unserious team.
He's been terrible.
How about this?
I was
Petition
wrong.
to have Matt Manning start instead of Kenta Maeda. He can't be any worse. He can't. He
No,
can't
he
be
They
worse.
can't. You
won't.
literally
Dude.
can't
They
be
won't
worse
do
than
it.
Maeda.
He's not worse.
They
and he
love
can't be worse.
Montero now. They love
Montero was
Montero.
actually
Matt
pretty
Manning
good
is.
yesterday.
Yeah, he had a great outing yesterday. They probably
It was
took him
awesome.
out too early too, to be honest. But I don't know. Here's my final words here. I will say that I am actually excited to watch this team. I know Meadows just got hurt. It sucks. It's hard to watch this team, as hard as it is to watch with these guys, to watch them without Meadows and Torkelson. Like, those are the guys that I want to see. Like, I like those. They just those are your young guys that you have some stock in, and you need to have them be successful for the rest of this team to even look competent. Colt Keith has been good. I'm excited for Javi Baez to be back. I'm glad he had a double last night. Good for you, Javi. Keep on chugging. I still believe. And my final words are, this should be Kenta Maeda's last day in a Tigers uniform. I never want to see Ryan Kreidler wear the English D ever again, and Akil Baddoo can find a new team tomorrow. That's it, and we can move on. And AJ Hinch loves Carson Kelly. He's now been batting fourth the last couple nights. I don't know what to tell you. I'm at a loss for words.
Kelly
They
has
are a
not
mess,
been that
but
bad.
that's all I have.
To.
He's been hitting well as of late, Carson Kelly.
He has not been bad.
That's all. My laptop's dying. Should we just wrap the show up and move on with our nights?
Wrap her up.
Wonderful. Thank you for listening to this episode. I'm sorry it took us so long to get back to you guys, but we will be back next week, maybe. I have no idea. We are on Spotify, Motown Rundown Podcast. We are on Twitter at Motown_Rundown. You can watch us on YouTube at the Motown Rundown channel. We have a Facebook channel, too, for your mom to check us out on. And your grandma and your aunts and uncles can all check us out on Facebook. Thank you guys for listening. We will have more coverage for you guys throughout the rest of the summer. Thanks for bearing with us through this crazy schedule. We love you guys very much. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.